There are places in the world that people know more from imagination than from facts, and North Korea belongs to them in an absolute sense. Beyond the tightly guarded border, behind a veil of propaganda, and in the shadow of nuclear threats, lives the daily life of 26 million people whose everyday reality is governed by rules so different from what we know in the rest of the world that even careful attempts to describe them sound like surreal fiction. And yet all of this is true, confirmed by defectors' testimonies, intelligence analyses, and the modest but invaluable observations of the few foreigners who were allowed short and tightly controlled visits to the country. The customs in question are not exotic folklore or colorful ethnic rituals. They are the product of a system that has shaped human behavior for more than 7 decades, with the precision of an engineer and the ruthlessness of a guard. The first thing that strikes anyone who has encountered accounts of life in North Korea is the attitude toward portraits of the leaders. In every apartment, in every workplace, in every classroom, and in every train carriage, hang images of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, and for some time now Kim Jong-un has been appearing there more and more often as well. These portraits are not mere decoration or even propaganda in the ordinary sense of the word. They are objects of worship with a formal, rule-bound character. Special teams called image protection groups regularly visit homes and institutions to check whether the portraits are properly hung. Always on the central wall, always at eye level or above, never next to other pictures, never near a window where they could fade in the sun. Dust on a portrait is treated as an act of political negligence, and damage to the image, even accidental, can lead to an investigation by the security organs. Defectors report that in the event of a fire, residents are obliged first to save the portraits, and only then their own children and belongings. This rule is instilled from kindergarten and is treated with deadly seriousness by most citizens, because the consequences of neglect can affect not only the culprit, but the entire family. Directly connected to the cult of images is the custom of wearing badges bearing the leader's portrait. Every adult citizen of North Korea wears a metal badge with the likeness of Kim Il-sung or Kim Jong-il on the chest, pinned to the left side of a jacket or blouse, closer to the heart. This badge is not optional. Its absence in public is noticed and commented on by local party cells. There is a hierarchy of badges. Those with both images are prestigious. Special variants are awarded for achievements and merits, and possessing one is a form of social status. Foreigners visiting the country are exempt from this obligation, which is one of the few privileges afforded to outside visitors, and many of them describe the strange feeling of being the only person without a badge in the crowd, which makes them immediately recognizable even from afar. Hairstyle control is another custom that, once examined in detail, leaves outside observers astonished. For many years, North Korea had an officially approved list of permitted hairstyles. According to various accounts, it included between 18 and 28 hairstyles for women and between 10 and 15 for men. The hairstyles on this list were displayed on posters in barbershops and had names. For a long time, men were required to wear their hair no longer than 5 centimeters, and high school students were required to wear even shorter hairstyles. Wearing a hairstyle considered Western or inspired by South Korean culture was and is treated as a form of ideological deviation, punishable by warnings and, in case of repetition, harsher sanctions. Celebrations and school assemblies are sometimes preceded by hair inspections conducted by designated teachers or older students serving as ideological class leaders. Clothing control is equally meticulous. Jeans were banned for many years as a symbol of American imperialism, although in recent years this ban has been applied unevenly, depending on the region and the severity of local officials. A woman in trousers was for many decades a socially unacceptable sight, and wearing overly bright colors could draw the attention of the security organs. A special role in enforcing aesthetic order falls to groups called grupa, paramilitary formations made up mainly of young men and women who patrolled streets and public places, stopping people with inappropriate clothing or behavior that does not conform to the norms. The detained person may be subjected to public criticism, fined, and in the case of repeated offenses, the matter is referred to the local party cell. Women shopping at illegal markets have repeatedly described buying clothes from China and having to rip off the sewn-in labels before going home in order to hide their foreign origin. Music and entertainment are subject to similar restrictions. except with added peculiarities that cannot be predicted. For decades, listening to foreign music was forbidden, and the only officially permitted musical creation was the Korean revolutionary repertoire or operas and mass songs written or approved by the leaders. Kim Jong-il personally interfered in the repertoire of theaters and philharmonics, and his contribution to Korean opera is described by propaganda as a genius without precedent in the history of music. When Kim Jong-un took power, there was for a short time some loosening. Foreign melodies entered the stage, and bands playing music close to pop appeared. However, after a few years, some of those artists were arrested, and the repertoire boundaries narrowed again. Possessing a recording of South Korean dramas or films is a crime punishable by labor camp, and yet smuggled content on flash drives and memory cards circulates throughout the country because demand is so high that no campaign of repression has been able to eliminate it. Mandatory self-criticism meetings, called Hoseng sessions, are one of the most characteristic rituals of social life in North Korea. Every week, usually on Saturday afternoon, groups of co-workers, neighbors, or students gather to publicly confess their own ideological shortcomings and criticize others. A participant must admit to a specific failing, lateness, negligence at work, improper conversation, and may then be criticized by the other participants. This system is simultaneously a tool of social control and a means of creating a widespread atmosphere of suspicion, because everyone knows they can be criticized by someone with whom they shared a private conversation a week earlier. Learning how to conduct self-criticism sessions begins in primary school. Children learn how to formulate their own confessions, how to criticize their classmates in a constructive way, and above all, how to avoid being criticized too harshly, which requires constant monitoring of the behavior of those around them. The relationship between citizens and mobile phones is a peculiar mix of control and usefulness. Mobile phones appeared in North Korea at the turn of the first and second decade of the 21st century, and the Koreolink network today serves several million subscribers. However, the North Korean phone has no access to the internet in the global sense. Users can use a closed intranet called Kwangmyong, which contains only approved Korean content, and they can make calls only within the country. Calls abroad are technologically blocked or require special permissions reserved for a narrow elite. Moreover, telephone conversations are routinely monitored by the security organs, something everyone knows and takes into account when choosing words even in private conversations. There are accounts of arrests after monitoring algorithms detected keywords related to South Korea or criticism of the system in a conversation. Therefore, a specific linguistic code has developed in which certain concepts are never stated directly but are veiled in other terms, which in itself is the best proof that citizens understand the nature of the system far better than propaganda would like to admit. Traveling within one's own country is a privilege in North Korea, not a right. To move from one city to another, a citizen must obtain a special travel permit issued by local administrative authorities. This permit specifies the purpose of the trip, its duration, and the route. Document checks at railway stations, city entrances, and on roads are routine and carried out by units of soldiers or security officers. Pyongyang is a special city. Entry into the capital is reserved for citizens with the proper position in the Songbun system and special residential registration. Living in Pyongyang is a privilege that can be lost as a result of a political offense, and then the entire family may be forcibly relocated to the provinces. Paradoxically, the reverse exists as well. An outstanding worker or athlete may receive permission to live in the capital as a reward, making capital registration one of the most valuable status assets in the entire system. Food and the ritual dimension of meals have a peculiar character in North Korea, shaped by decades of shortages and distribution policy. The public distribution system, which for decades delivered each citizen an assigned ration according to class and occupation, shaped the way food is thought of as a political resource, not a culinary one. Manual workers and soldiers got more, intellectuals and people with lower Songbun classifications got less. When the system collapsed in the 1990s, consumption habits developed over generations, equal, collective, measured more by calories than by taste, collided with the brutal reality of the free market. Today in Pyongyang, there are restaurants serving refined dishes for party elites and foreign guests, while in the provinces people cook seagrass and corn husks so they do not starve. This contrast is literal and documented, and yet both worlds exist in parallel, as if on different planets. Political education in North Korea begins before a child learns to read. Even in kindergarten, little children learn songs praising the leader, perform little plays in which the bad children are those who do not love Kim Il-sung, and the good ones are those who worship him. In primary school, the first lesson of every day is the recitation of quotations from the leaders, and the curriculum of history and social studies is fully subordinated to glorifying the Kim dynasty. School textbooks contain legendary stories about Kim Il-sung's superhuman abilities, that as a 3-year-old, he could predict the future, and that nature mourned his death by turning the sky purple and sending storms. Children memorize these stories, take exams on them, and repeat them in front of parents who were themselves raised in the same system, and who often do not know how to separate mythology from history, because they never had access to alternative sources. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and do not miss the next video. It is already waiting for you.